Okay, here we are. This is going to be a bit of an experiment. This is going to be a practice natal chart reading by me, and this is a bit of an experiment. I'm going to try to be creating my own structure for a reading, and so this is the first part of this reading, and it's going to be approximately 15 minutes. And I've decided in these first practice readings that I'm going to be doing to choose a random chart from a random time that I chose. And I'm going to do 3 15-minute sections to the reading. The first one is going to be the Primal Triad analysis. And the second 15-minute section was going to be the karmic analysis. And the third 15-minute section is going to be the planetary analysis, the planetary synthesis of the rest of the chart and the final conclusion. So this is a practice session basically for me more than anyone else. If anyone listens to this and gets to find some meaningfulness and get something out of it, that's just a bonus. Alright, so I'm going to start a timer here. I'm going to have my chart handy to be able to see everything clearly. Okay, so 15 minutes starting now. Okay, so the Primal Triad analysis of this chart. So the beginning of the reading is always about emphasizing the importance of the sun. Most people understand the sun sign astrology and how it's the main thing most people seem to think about when it comes to astrology. But the deeper, the hermetic reality of the sun in the chart is it's the gravitational center of the entire chart. The entire chart is a solar system of aspects of the mind, the planets that orbit the sun. And the sun is the vital force. It's the energy, the dynamic energy of the entire system that gives the entire chart life and the ability to evolve and change and grow, which is the whole point. So in this chart, the sun is in the sign of Cancer, and it's in the 8th house with a 5-degree away conjunction of Venus in the same sign. So in this sign, Cancer is about the protection of sensitivity by the symbol of the crab and the shells, and how the shells offer protection and also offer dangers of not being able to move past and outgrow outdated layers of protection. And so the solar vital force is existing in these crab shell layers. And the solar vital force in this individual is on an evolutionary pathway of being growing into the ability to feel very deeply while still being protected and able to maintain a empathetic, nurturing, motherly feeling. And so the sun is in the 8th house. The 8th house, ruled by Scorpio, is about the taboo aspects of the things humanity sweeps under the rug. Commonly, the common 3 words is sex, death, and the occult. And with the houses, we have the outer behavioral physically oriented aspects of the energy. And so with the sun in the 8th house in the sign of Cancer, the energy is, the metaphor I'm seeing in my mind is a kind of like this great searchlight of sunlight shining into the depths of human intimacy at the deepest level, and kind of the nakedness that deep sexuality and deep contemplations of mortality have on the soul, and those deep places where lots of people aren't willing to go. And so with the sun there, the evolutionary intention of the soul here is to be able to penetrate into that deep place by feeling very deeply, and protecting vulnerability by being willing to feel that deeply, and being willing to surrender to intimacy. And this is where the Venus comes in as well. Venus being the ability and the desire of us to connect to others, and to share love, and to feel whole and complete in the world. And so the metaphor here of the searchlight going down into the depths to illuminate the dark, it's also based in the capacity to be able to be calm. Venus is the goddess of peace. And so being able to feel calm in those turbulent, watery, kind of unsettling depths. And the Venus energy here is very, it's solarized, being in conjunction to the sun. And it's about the catalyzing impact of, and also I think about love, the desire to connect, which is the 8th house, the deep sexuality and healing of intimacy. So that is the sun in a nutshell. Definitely a bit rushed, but hey, this is an experiment. I'm trying to figure out the time frames to do this in. So the next part we should talk about is the rising sign. The ascendant in this chart is Scorpio, which is interesting because the sun is in the 8th house, so there's a clear connection there. The two rulers of the chart being Pluto in Sagittarius in the 2nd house, and Mars in Leo in the midhaven. And so the ascendant is the focal point through which the entirety of the chart is presented into the world. It's the style of the energy. It's in the spirit of true Hermeticism and how the chart symbolizes the sky. It's how you dawn on people. It's how you first appear, like the sun rising above the horizon. And so in the sign of Scorpio, the energy of this triad is about the appearance of intensity. Scorpio is about intensity, about penetrating insight. And so the dawning energy of this chart upon people that they had never met before would be maybe kind of affronting to people who aren't used to that kind of intensity. And so it can also easily be felt of and imagined as a stained glass through which the rest of the chart is translated through, modulated by, So you have all the other zodiacal, elemental, planetary energies, which are their own unique colors and influences on each other, all finally being focused through the ascendant. And one way the ascendant is really cool to me, that I think is a useful metaphor, is kind of like the edge of the heliosphere. So if you imagine the sun as the center of the chart, the basis of energy, vitality, life force in the entire system. In the physical universe, the solar wind is basically the atmosphere of the sun, and it stretches all the way out, far past the edges of the solar system and Pluto and the trans-Neptunian objects. And so that is kind of like the outer edge of the sun. And so relative to other suns in the universe, which is an interesting metaphor because, everyone is a sun, has their own sun. It's the outer edge. It's how your sun energy dawns on people that are meeting you. And so this chart is really cool because it has the first ruler of the ascendant, Mars, in Leo, in the 10th house on the midhaven. So we'll come back to that in a second. And then we have Pluto in Sagittarius in the 2nd house. And so from that, we'll just go ahead and bring in the moon here too, because the moon is also in a fire sign. We have the moon in Aries in the 5th house. Actually, we're going to throw it into the 6th house, the 1.5-degree rule. So with the two rulers of the ascendant, it's kind of like emissaries of your style, emissaries of the stained glass, of how you're comfortable presenting yourself to the world, as emissaries carried to other parts of the chart. So this individual, the evolutionary comfort zone for presenting the self to the world in the martial sense with the Mars, is in a very visible, fiery public expression. And that's how the ascendant prefers to present itself, in a comfortable, streamlined way. The ascendant is streamlining the entire chart, all of that complexity, into a public representation where you can feel poised and clear and confident in being yourself. And so then Pluto, in the 2nd house ruled by Taurus, which is about resources and material needs and having what you need. And people always think of money, but money always wasn't around. So before that, in a more primal sense, it's food, water, shelter, and basic needs. And so that's another fiery part of this Primal Triad energy. And so then we can also bring in the moon here, the moon in Aries in the 6th house. So moon in Aries is the archetype of the warrior, the protector. My favorite way to describe the Aries moon energy is the courageous healer. The courageous healer energy. The moon is the symbol of the Great Mother. And interestingly, the moon rules Cancer, which is the sign the sun is in. So there's a dynamic energy there between the sun and moon. They're in a whole sign square, not an exact square. And so the energy is very interesting. So the moon's in the 6th house, ruled by Virgo. So the ability for the individual to feel I keep saying the individual in third person, and I'm going to switch that. I'm going to start talking in first person as if the person is here. Or second person, I guess, you. So that Virgo energy of responsibilities and meticulousness and the pursuit of perfection through the use of having a craft, being competent in responsibilities and everyday work that is meaningful to you, contributing to others by having a way to be of service. And that is, in this chart, that is the lunar evolutionary strategy for feeling happiness, for feeling the lunar sense of inner well-being and self-nurturance, which is really cool in this chart because it links back to the sun. The secret of the chart interpretation that I'm learning and teaching myself currently is always stitching everything back to the sun. So that ability to cultivate happiness and flow back into the solar vitalizing life force, still with that penetrating insight of solar light into the deep dark Venetian 8th house Cancer energy, to feel protected by being in a passionate, intense, deeply illuminating encounter with a soul partner, in a deep, meaningful relationship. So that is how this triad kind of communicates together and returns to itself, and sets this multi-layered intention for the evolution of the soul. And so in conclusion here, I just want to point out that the next part, the 15-minute chunk at the reading, is going to be the karmic analysis, karmic synthesis. And it's with the two rulers of the ascendant and the moon, and we'll see in the next part, the south node of the moon. There's a lot of fiery energy in the chart, and what I'm going to talk about next time is how, with the sun and the ascendant and the north node and the Uranus and some other things in the chart, the intention of the soul here is using the water element to kind of quell and put out the fires of some fiery karma, is what I feel in this chart. So that's going to be it for the first part, and I'll be back for the next part, the karmic analysis, next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.